In the gleaming automotive district of Los Angeles, millionaire tech CEO Richard Harmon laughed as Miguel Reyes, a street mechanic from East LA, suggested an unconventional fix for his $300,000 Ferrari's persistent engine problem. "You expect me to let someone who works out of a garage touch this masterpiece?" Richard scoffed. As the prestigious dealership mechanics nodded in agreement, but when the Ferrari remained unfixable after weeks at the dealership, desperation led Richard back to Miguel's humble shop. What happened next shocked the automotive world, with Ferrari's head engineer flying in overnight after seeing what this simple mechanic had accomplished. This true story of talent hidden in plain sight will leave you speechless. Stay with us to witness how one man's intuition and unrecognized genius revolutionized supercar engineering overnight, reminding us all that brilliance emerges from the most unexpected places and how sweet justice can taste. The small town of San Miguel, just outside Guadalajara, Mexico, was known for its sprawling farmlands and simple way of life. Here, among the dusty roads and modest homes, Miguel Reyes was born to a family where hard work was not just valued, it was necessary for survival. His father, Eduardo, owned a small repair shop that specialized in fixing farm equipment, tractors, and the occasional car that found its way to their doorstep. From the age of 8, Miguel displayed an uncanny ability that made even the adults stop and stare. Where others heard just noise, Miguel could listen to an engine and identify exactly what was wrong. It was as if he could speak a language only machines understood. "Listen," his father would say, pulling him close to a tractor engine. "What do you hear?" Miguel would close his eyes, his small hand resting on the metal surface, feeling the vibrations. "The timing is off," he'd say, or, "There's a crack in the third cylinder." And time after time, he was right. His grandfather, Roberto, had once been a mechanic for racing teams in his youth before settling down in San Miguel. In Miguel, he saw not just talent, but a gift that could change the boy's future. While other children played soccer in the streets, Miguel sat with his grandfather, absorbing complex theories of combustion engines, thermal dynamics, and mechanical resonance. "An engine is like a symphony," Roberto would tell him. "Each part must play in harmony with the others. When you hear a problem, you're hearing a musician out of tune." By 15, Miguel could rebuild engines blindfolded. By 17, farmers from neighboring towns would specifically ask for "the boy with the golden ears" when bringing their equipment for repair. But the small town had limited opportunities, and Miguel dreamed of more. He devoured engineering books, often reading by candlelight when the electricity went out. His mother would find him asleep, face pressed against diagrams of engine components, pencil still in hand from where he'd been making notes. When Miguel turned 19, with barely $500 saved and a duffel bag of clothes, he crossed the border into the United States, settling in East Los Angeles where a distant cousin lived. The reality of immigrant life hit hard. His talent with engines meant nothing without credentials or connections. For 3 years, Miguel worked multiple jobs: dishwasher in the morning, convenience store clerk in the evening, and mechanic's helper on weekends. Every spare dollar went into a coffee can labeled "Me Taller, My Workshop." Every spare minute went into studying English and reading mechanical engineering textbooks borrowed from the public library. When Miguel finally saved enough to rent a small garage space in an industrial area of East LA, it was far from impressive. Concrete floors stained with oil, fluorescent lights that flickered, and secondhand tools organized meticulously on pegboards. But to Miguel, it was the fulfillment of a dream. Word spread among the working-class neighborhoods about the mechanic who could fix what others couldn't. Taxi drivers, delivery truck operators, and families with aging cars that dealerships had given up on. They all found their way to Miguel's Auto Solutions. His prices were fair, his work impeccable, and his diagnostic abilities almost supernatural. What his clients didn't see were the innovations behind Miguel's success. He created custom diagnostic tools from repurposed electronics. He developed his own testing methods based on sound and vibration patterns. Where other mechanics relied solely on computer readings, Miguel integrated digital data with his intuitive understanding of mechanical harmony. His breakthrough moment came unexpectedly during the city's annual parade. The mayor's vintage Cadillac broke down in the middle of the route, creating a bottleneck in the procession. When the official mechanics couldn't solve the problem, Miguel, who was watching the parade, stepped forward. In less than 5 minutes, he had identified and fixed an electrical issue that had stumped professionals with advanced equipment. The mayor was impressed enough to recommend Miguel to several friends, including some who owned luxury vehicles. Still, Miguel remained invisible to the high-end dealerships and exclusive automotive circles of Beverly Hills and Newport Beach. His dream of working with cutting-edge supercars seemed as distant as ever. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, Miguel was finishing an oil change when he heard it, the distinctive sound of a Ferrari California driving past his shop, even above the street noise. His trained ear caught a subtle knocking that shouldn't have been there. The sound lingered in his mind for days, like an unresolved chord in a piece of music. Richard Harmon had built his fortune through a series of tech startup acquisitions. At 42, he embodied the California tech success story mansion in the hills, private jet membership, and a collection of exotic cars that were more investment assets than transportation. His latest acquisition, a Ferrari Foto Tributo in Signature Red, was his pride and joy. When the car developed a mysterious engine problem, Richard was annoyed but not worried. That's what warranties and service plans were for. He delivered his prized possession to Beverly Hills Exotic Motors, the official Ferrari dealership serving Southern California's elite clients. "Don't worry, Mr. Harmon," the service manager assured him, handing him the keys to a courtesy Maserati. "Our master technicians are factory-trained in Maranello. Your F8 will be back to perfection in no time." But weeks passed, and the problem persisted. Each time Richard picked up the car, the issue would return within days. The dealership replaced sensors, recalibrated systems, and ran diagnostic after diagnostic. The bills mounted covered under warranty, but Richard's patience was wearing thin. "I'm missing client meetings because of this," he complained during his 4th visit to the dealership. "What am I paying for if you can't fix a simple engine issue?" It was at a gas station near Brentwood that Miguel and Richard's paths crossed. Miguel had just finished delivering a repaired Mercedes to a client and was filling up his modest work truck when he heard the unmistakable rumble of the Ferrari pulling in. Even over the pump's noise, his ear caught the disharmony in its engine note. Miguel watched Richard step out, phone pressed to his ear. Clearly, in the middle of an important business call, the Ferrari's engine continued to idle. And to Miguel, it was like hearing a world-class pianist hitting a wrong note repeatedly. He couldn't help himself. When Richard ended his call, Miguel approached respectfully. "Excuse me, sire. I couldn't help but notice your Ferrari has a harmonic imbalance in the intake resonance chamber. It's causing incomplete combustion in cylinders 3 and 6. Richard looked Miguel up and down, noting the worn work clothes, the accent, the old pickup truck with Miguel's Auto Solutions painted on the side. His expression shifted from surprise to amusement. "Is that so?" Richard laughed. "And I suppose you learned that at Ferrari University?" 2 mechanics from the dealership, there to pick up another client's car, walked over. "Everything all right, Mr. Harmon?" one asked, eyeing Miguel suspiciously. "Oh, I'm getting a free diagnosis from—" Richard gestured vaguely at Miguel. "Miguel Reyes," he supplied, extending his hand, which Richard ignored. "Right. According to Mr. Reyes here, you guys have missed something called a harmonic imbalance or whatever." The taller mechanic snorted. These street mechanics always think they know better. They watch some YouTube videos and suddenly they're experts. My shop is in East LA, Miguel said calmly. If you'd like a second opinion on your vehicle, I believe I could. You think I'm going to let someone who probably works on taco trucks touch my $300,000 Ferrari? Richard interrupted. The dealership mechanics laughed. The service manager, who had now joined the group, pulled Richard aside. Mr. Harmon, we see this all the time. These guys are always trying to drum up business by approaching our clients. Trust me, if there was a simple fix, our team would have found it. Miguel absorbed the humiliation silently. He simply placed his business card on the Ferrari's windshield and walked away, the laughter following him. For another month, Richard's frustration grew. The problem was worsening. And now the dealership was suggesting a complete engine replacement, $85,000, and a 3-month wait for a new engine from Italy. This is unacceptable. Richard fumed. I have investors flying in next week. I need this car operational. His assistant, Jennifer, who had been organizing his appointments, hesitantly spoke up. Sir, I found this in your car when I was retrieving your sunglasses last month. She held up Miguel's card, maybe as a last resort. Richard stared at the card, weighing his desperation against his pride. Finally, he made the call. Miguel's workshop felt like entering another world compared to the gleaming showroom of Beverly Hills exotic motors. No espresso machine. No luxury waiting area with Italian leather couches. No flat-screen TVs showing Formula One highlights. Just concrete floors, fluorescent lights, and the smell of oil and metal. Richard stood awkwardly in his tailored suit, watching Miguel approach the Ferrari with reverence that surprised him. The mechanic didn't immediately open the hood or ask for the keys. Instead, he walked around the vehicle slowly, studying its lines, occasionally stopping to listen. I'll need to keep it for 2 days, Miguel said finally. Richard scoffed. The Ferrari dealership has had it for weeks and couldn't fix it. What makes you think you can do it in 2 days? Miguel met his houses steadily, because I've heard this problem before. In different engines, the principles are the same. Against his better judgment, Richard left the keys. If anything happens to this car, he began, I understand what this machine represents. Miguel replied simply, I'll treat it with the respect it deserves. Once alone, Miguel began a methodical process unlike anything the dealership technicians had attempted. He placed his old stethoscopy gift from his grandfather against different parts of the engine, closing his eyes to focus. He made hand-drawn diagrams of sound wave patterns, correlating them with the engine's RPM ranges. The sophisticated computer diagnostics had missed what Miguel's trained ear detected: a subtle harmonic vibration that occurred when certain components reached specific temperatures. The problem wasn't electrical or digital. It was purely mechanical. A resonance issue that the Ferrari's advanced sensors weren't programmed to detect. Miguel worked through the night, sleeping only 2 hours on a cot he kept in the back of his shop. By morning, he had developed a theory. By afternoon, he had crafted a solution using mathematical principles. His grandfather had taught him principles about harmonic resonance that applied as much to high-performance engines as they did to farm equipment. The challenge was implementing the fix without Ferrari's proprietary tools. Miguel fabricated what he needed from basic materials, adapting regular tools for specialized purposes. He made delicate adjustments by handwork that required the touch sensitivity of a safecracker and the patience of a watchmaker. Richard called repeatedly, his tone alternating between threatening and pleading. This is a precision-engineered supercar, not some pickup truck, he reminded Miguel. If you're in over your head, just say so. But Miguel was in his element. As he worked, he recalled similar problems he'd solved in tractors and irrigation pumps back in Mexico. Different machines, but the same underlying principles. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. Mechanical truths are universal. Miguel, They don't change because the price tag does. At 3 in the morning of the second day, Miguel made a final adjustment and started the engine. The sound that filled the workshop was different, pure, harmonious, perfect. He called Richard at dawn. "Your car is ready." Richard arrived, still skeptical, making no attempt to hide his doubts. "You actually fixed it?" he asked, eyeing the Ferrari as if expecting to see it damaged. "Take it for a test drive," Miguel suggested, handing over the keys. The moment Richard started the engine, his expression changed. Even to his untrained ear, something was different. The car didn't just sound. Fixed It sounded better than when he'd first purchased it. The power delivery was smoother, the engine more responsive. After a brief drive around the block, Richard returned with reluctant amazement. "What did you do?" Miguel explained in simple terms about the harmonic imbalance and his solution. Richard nodded, understanding perhaps 10% of the technical details, but 100% of the results. When presented with Miguel's bill, a fraction of what the dealership had been charging for temporary fixes, Richard frowned. "This seems low for what you've accomplished." "It's my standard rate," Miguel replied. "The complexity of the problem doesn't change the dignity of the work." As they completed the transaction, Richard's phone rang. His face tightened as he answered. "What do you mean they're already here? The meeting isn't until—" He checked his watch and cursed. "Traffic accident on Wilshire?" "How bad?" Hanging up, Richard explained his predicament to Miguel. A group of Italian investors had arrived early for a critical meeting. With a major accident blocking his usual route, he needed to get across town in less than an hour or risk losing a multi-million-dollar deal. "There's a canyon route," Miguel offered. "It's winding but clear of traffic." Richard hesitated. "I just got the car fixed. I don't want to push it too hard." "She'll perform better than ever," Miguel assured him. The repair didn't just fix the problem, it optimized the system. With no other options, Richard agreed. The Ferrari carved through the canyon roads with precision that surprised even him. Each turn, each acceleration, each moment of braking felt perfectly calibrated. By the time they reached the downtown financial district, Richard was grinning like a teenager. They pulled up in front of the gleaming skyscraper just as a group of executives exited a limousine. One of them, a distinguished Italian man in his 50s, turned at the sound of the Ferrari's engine. "Richard," the man called out, approaching with interest. "Is this your F8 Tributo?" He circled the car, head tilted slightly. "Something sounds different, better than standard." "The harmonic profile is extraordinary." Richard introduced the man as Matteo Bianchi, Ferrari's chief technical officer, in Los Angeles for a technology conference. Matteo continued to study the car with growing fascination. "Who worked on this engine?" he asked. "This calibration is remarkable." Richard hesitated, then gestured toward Miguel, who had been standing quietly to the side. "This is Miguel Reyes. He has a shop in East LA. He solved a problem our dealership couldn't fix." Matteo's eyebrows rose as he assessed Miguel in his work clothes. "What exactly did you do?" "Mr. Reyes?" Miguel explained his diagnosis and solution, this time in technical detail. As he spoke, Matteo's expression transformed from polite interest to stunned attention. He began asking pointed questions that only someone with deep engineering knowledge could answer. Miguel responded with confidence, occasionally sketching diagrams on the back of a business card to illustrate complex points. "This is extraordinary," Matteo finally said, turning to Richard. "Your mechanic has intuitively solved a resonance issue our engineering team in Maranello has been working on for the next generation engine." He pulled out his phone. "I need to get our head of engineering on a video call immediately." Richard looked from Matteo to Miguel, suddenly understanding that something momentous was happening. "We can use the conference room upstairs?" he offered. "The investors can wait." Within 30 minutes, Miguel found himself explaining his solution to a room full of Ferrari engineers on a video screen. While Richard and Matteo watched in person, Miguel drew diagrams on the whiteboard. breaking down the harmonic principles that had guided his repair. The Italian engineers fell silent,